Because so much of what we deal with in this century has to do with economics, that's business and money. We're going to have in this packet a nice little economics lesson so that we understand what we're talking about the whole rest of the year. So sit back, put on your seatbelt, lots of definitions, lots of information on the economy, but hopefully you'll be able to understand more of the things that they talk about nowadays as we study the past and as we do this lesson. This part of it is on classical economics. Now, classical economics is just simply how the way things normally go if they're kind of untouched. We're going to talk about how that works. Let's talk about some definitions first. Money. What's the definition of money? Well, you probably know what it is. You may have some in your pocket, or you may wish you had more. But money, the technical definition of it is the ability to command goods and services. In other words, if you have money, you can get stuff from people. That's the goods. You can, buy stuff. Or services. You can have people do things for you. If you give them money, people will do things for you. They'll serve you or wash your car or whatever. So money is the ability to command goods and services. So money is an important part of any of these classical economies because, you have to have money to make things go. Let's talk about some of the classical economics terms. We need to do this one first. Supply and demand. Supply is how much of things there are. Oh, I wrote the demand a little bit off the screen. That says demand over there. I'll have to remember that. Screen ends right there. Got a line. Supply is how much there is. So for instance, how many houses there are in your neighborhood, or how many candy bars they have at the store, or how much hamburgers the world can make. That's the supply. The demand is how many people want it. Maybe lots of people want candy bars, but maybe not so many people want pickled pig's feet. I don't know. There's the supply and demand. But let's talk about how this works, especially how it affects price. If, let's say, there are lots of candy bars. Let's actually go the other way. Let's say in Utah, so it's probably most of you are in Utah, there are only 4 candy bars. Well, that's not very many. So the supply is very low. Low supply. But how many people want candy bars? Lots. Like the whole state, except for maybe, a few people. Everybody should want candy bars, so let's say there's tons of demand. Lots of people want it. There's tons of want. So if lots of people want it, but there's only 4 of them, what does that do to price? If supply goes down and demand goes up, the price goes up. So in other words, if you have 4 candy bars and you have the only 4 candy bars in the state, you can probably sell those candy bars for, $100, $200, $300, $400 each. Let me give you a little example. In one of my classes when I was in college, it was a big class, a whole lecture hall of, I think there were about 600 people in this lecture. It was huge, huge, huge class. And he wanted to demonstrate to us this supply and demand idea. So in this class of 600 people, he gets out a dozen donuts. He says, I just happened to bring to class today a dozen donuts. Here it is. It's the only dozen donuts in the room. Now there are 600 of you. How many of you want the dozen donuts? And, most people raise their hand. So he says, look, there is a big demand for this dozen donuts. How much would you normally buy a dozen donuts for? Oh, maybe $12, $15 at the most. That's what they'd normally go to in the grocery store. But he says here, there is a very low supply and a high demand. So let's auction it off. And he actually auctioned off this box of donuts in class. And I think the class that I was in, the dozen donuts went for $50. $50 for a dozen donuts. But that's because the supply was low, the demand was high, and so only one person could get it. So the person who didn't care about money the most, I guess had the most money, $50 got it. So he said he sold it for as much as $100 in the past. So that's pretty impressive. When the supply goes down and there's lots of want, the price goes up. What about the other way around? If the supply goes up and the demand goes down, so supply goes up, in other words, now there's like 1 million candy bars in Utah. And maybe people come out and say, you know, candy bars will make your face ugly. And so people don't want them anymore, so there's a ton, so the demand goes down. So now all of a sudden there's all these candy bars sitting around and not very many people to buy them. What's that going to do to price? They're going to have to sell those candy bars really cheap. So supply and demand is what makes prices in a classical economy. In a classical economy, you just kind of let supply and demand determine the price. We're going to talk a little bit more about price in the next video.